with Godwin. I'm at Liberty University. I am a MAT candidate, and Communications 101 is part of my content competencies. Have you ever known hunger? Have you ever not had a place to sleep? Have you ever been dirty without the possibility of a shower? Have you ever been confused, delusional, lost, depressed? Have you been all of these at once? If you've ever felt any of these afflictions, or known someone who has, then you might understand the need for a change in the way our country takes care of their mentally ill, homeless. Well, I'm not a social worker, nor do I work for the courts or even volunteer for a soup kitchen. I'm very motivated to finding a feasible option for the mentally ill in our country. My nephew, Joseph, who's now 31, is diagnosed as schizophrenic and bipolar. He struggles every day of his life. I've seen with my own eyes what these diseases can do to ravage a family and individuals, and the consequences that ensue. In our country today, the mentally ill are the modern-day lepers who, without an opportunity to access medical service and shelter with support, find themselves marginalized, forgotten, or worse yet, arrested and in prison. And we watch it happen every day, till we look to God. We see that He values every human. He wants us to care for His children. Support my thesis by identifying who the homeless mentally ill are, treatment for their illnesses, and how the system has to change in order to make that happen in a manner that God would value. At this time, I'll investigate mental illness among the homeless. The mentally ill find themselves without food, a place to sleep, a support system, or medical treatment at a time when they're in the most need. It's estimated that there are about 1.7 million homeless people in our country on any given day or night, men, women, children. And of those homeless, about 1/5 have a documented mental illness such as bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. That's almost 400,000 untreated mentally ill homeless people walking our streets in our cities and towns, looking for a meal out of a trash can or a dumpster, or finding a spot to sleep on a subway or a train or in a sewer line. Some may think that the mentally ill are dangerous and violent, but this stigma has been bombarded on us by the media. It's not true. In reality, a very low percentage of the homeless mentally ill are violent. Those numbers do change, of course, when substance abuse is added to the mix, but that's the case for all homeless people, for any people. In fact, the mentally ill are most often victims of violent assault, theft, and rape. In Mark 1:40-41, the scripture says, "And a leper came to Jesus, beseeching him, and falling on his knees before him, saying, 'If you are willing, you can make me clean.' Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said, 'I am willing, be cleansed.'" Just as the lepers of that time were considered castaways, and most people were scared of them, the mentally ill have the same stigmas. Dr. Torrey from the Mental Illness Policy Organization says that they are the lowest caste. Even in shelters, they're untouchable among the outcasts. How to treat these souls is our next question. Jervis from the USA Today says, "The mentally ill homeless are some of the hardest to reach and the toughest to treat, often self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, and teetering between lucidity and crippling despair. Many of the mentally ill who are homeless and unaware that they're even sick. Therefore, it's difficult at best to get them the treatment they desperately need. Of those that left any treatment facility, more often than not, within 6 months they were back on the street." Treatment for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder in the form of medication and counseling is possible and very effective if taken and administered regularly. if left untreated. These disorders are devastating to the individual and costly to the federal government in housing, emergency room visits, arrests, and jail time, especially since these costs don't include any services for the specific diseases. While treatment alone can be effective, Housing First is an initiative that's becoming very popular. With this, the mentally ill homeless are taken off the streets and put into housing, and then they're treated for the disease. Permanent, supportive housing, in combination with medical and counseling treatments, serves to get them off the streets and saves millions in government funds each year. Changing the stigma against the mentally ill in regards to them being dangerous or violent would go a long way to creating a caring environment. When people think they're stigmatized, they're less likely to get help. They're also less likely to show that they need help. Scripture tells us in Leviticus 25:35, if your relative becomes so poor that he is indebted to you, then you are to support him. You are to let him live with you, just like the resident alien and the traveler. If one could open their heart and their hands to a stranger in the day of Leviticus, shouldn't they be able to open their heart to someone who's in true need today? These people are human, but struggling, and one day it could be any one of us. Lastly, how to make this happen. In order to make a difference in the lives of the homeless mentally ill, government, HUD, and social services must change the system that regulates how they're treated. In many cases, the homeless mentally ill are unaware that Medicaid would pay for their medication and counseling. The federal government must make it a priority to get these people information, treated, and off the street. Government officials seem to think that they're saving money by emptying beds in mental hospitals and shutting down mental hospitals. But the fact is, the cost of taking care of one homeless mentally ill person per year, on average, in mental hospitals, shelters, and prisons, is more than $40,000 per person per year. That's 400,000 individuals per year. But in the Housing First incentive, the cost is less than $18,000 per year. That's care, that's medication, that's therapy, and that's a supportive environment. Another idea is done in San Antonio, Texas, is a restoration center. The homeless are picked up from the street, brought to a complex in which there is a medical facility, including psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, sobriety wings, information on apartments, social workers are present, all in the same location. The police are instructed to bring the homeless to this location so that they can be properly processed, not brought to the police station, not brought to jail. They're treated, they get the care and the services they need. In Scripture, Matthew 25:35, speaks volumes of what the Lord wants from us. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in, naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you, a stranger, and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? The king will answer and say to them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of my brothers, of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. One day you and I may be the least of our people. God intended us to take care of one another, of his children, as we would care for him. In conclusion, in the United States today, 1/5 of the homeless have documented mental illness. It might be higher. At this time in their lives, they're not able to care for themselves with shelter, food, or medicine. It should be our duty, honor, and privilege to help as we can change how we think and treat these individuals, and do our best to be the voice of change for a more humane and productive process of healing. Every one of those lost souls is God's child, and how we treat one another is paramount to our salvation and their life. It's our duty, our honor, and our obligation as fellow humans to do everything we can to change how these homeless, mentally ill people are treated and cared for. Through medication, counseling, and supportive housing, these people could be off the streets living productive, happy lives. We have a choice. We could stand on his right side and be righteous. We've seen too many standing on his left. Thank you. Have a good evening.